Welcome to Common Sense. Common Sense is a series of shows featuring interviews with interesting people. And we want you to get to know who these folks are, what they do, and what makes sense to them and what doesn't. And we want to do that in a clear, concise, and direct way. I'm Rudy Breglia, and today I'll be interviewing, and I don't want to miss any of these, author, award-winning TV radio host and journalist, editor, entrepreneur, and currently, most importantly, candidate for a Lorain County Auditor, Rodger Roeser.
Yes, great to be here, Rudy.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
And Rodger is currently the owner and CEO of the Lorain County-based Eisen Agency. Welcome to Common Sense, and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, Rodger, why don't you start us off by giving us some of your background,
Sure.
where you've been born, where you've lived, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually born in Amherst, so I was born in Lorain County.
All right.
But my parents quickly moved out to Birmingham, so kind of lived in the boonies, I guess, for lack of a better term, back in the day. Then we moved to Wakeman, so I grew up in Wakeman, went to Western Reserve High School before I left to go to college. So I was there for about 18 years, and I went to Kent State. And then from there, I kind of bounced around a little bit before I settled in. I went to New York, and then I settled in Cincinnati. And my wife and I lived in Cincinnati for the past, I think, almost 20 years. And then we moved back to Lorain County, live in Sheffield Village now, and have lived there for the past 5 years.
Okay.
So kind of, moved around a little bit, mostly because of work. But it was time to come home and, be closer to family and friends that we miss dearly. So it was a good time to move.
Okay, and we're happy you did.
It's good to be home.
Okay, tell us about your volunteer activities.
Sure. So there's a few programs that I really believe in. I'm a history buff for starters, so
Okay.
I like to do a lot of things that involve history. So a lot of the volunteer work that I do is providing pro bono background and expertise in marketing, advertising, public relations, and digital, since that's my bailiwick, and I try to help different organizations. One of the groups that I'm working with right now is the historic Lime Village in Bellevue, Ohio,
Okay.
Which is an amazing facility. I mean, if you love history, this is just one of the neatest places to go visit if you get a chance. Bellevue's out kind of by Sandusky.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, when COVID hit, I rescued a 1897 Victorian mansion that was in significant disrepair. And I actually
Wow.
almost single-handedly remodeled that thing and put it back to life, and just sold it recently, and it was just an amazing opportunity to do that. I do a lot of work with animal shelters as well. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. So again, a lot of pro bono work and helping them to raise money. And I also help minority and women-owned small businesses pro bono with their marketing and advertising.
In
and
your
PR.
spare time.
In my spare time. I am pulled in a lot of different directions, but being the CEO of my business, I'm blessed to have some fabulous folks that work with me that are able to pick up the slack, so I'm able to give a little bit more of my self,
Okay,
which
well,
is nice.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell us about the steps you've taken in your career.
So after graduating college, I worked at a television station. I was a TV reporter and TV anchor in college. Then I went on to radio. I worked in a radio station up in Sandusky, WLEC and WCPZ, 102.7 FM. And I
Still remember that, huh?
I was their newscaster for a while, and then I was moonlighting as a newspaper reporter, of all things, with the Morning Journal. And so I made so little money that the radio station didn't mind that I was, picking up a side gig with the Journal to write some stories. And I think they paid me, gosh, Rudy, this was a while ago, but I think I got paid a whopping $50 a story or something like that. So, it was raking in the cash, right? Yeah. And then I ended up working for the Oberlin News Tribune, Amherst News Times, and Wellington Enterprise at the beginning of my career. They were all owned by the same company. It was the Bellevue Gazette Company at the time. To my knowledge, they don't exist anymore. But that's where I cut my teeth before I got a break. Ended up working for a NASCAR team, of all things, to be their marketing and public relations executive.
Wow.
It was a startup NASCAR team in Sandusky, Ohio. And boy, that was cool. I mean, you're 20 something, and you're working for a pro sports team, and kind of making up some things as you go along. But my background in music combined with my background in journalism and whatnot made me a pretty good public relations and marketing person. Then from there, I worked at an agency, and about 2005, I decided it was time to hang my own shingle and start my own firm. So, kind of a very abbreviated here to now story, but.
Describe for us, if we can get to a little more depth on newspaper journalist. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, that's a neat job. I mean, again, I didn't make any money. This was in the early 90s. I think, honest to gosh, Rudy, I think I made like $4 an hour. So it was not a high-paying gig at the time. But I mean, it was a neat job, and I worked with some great people. Jody Green is still a dear friend of mine. She was the editor of the Enterprise back in the day, and really learned a lot from her. And I had the opportunity to do a lot of the things in the newspaper business, from learning how to do actual paste up and putting together the paper to, writing and that's really where a lot of my love of history and maybe government came from, because I would cover city council, I would cover the county commissioners, I would cover, all these.
Jack of all trades.
Oh boy, so you're covering all these meetings, and it's amazing what you learn and what you observe and what you end up seeing. And I'd like to believe this was back when journalists had a little bit more integrity than I feel that they do now.
Okay.
But I took it very seriously that I was trying to be objective. I wasn't picking sides. I was trying to inform people on what was going on.
Okay.
But you learn how to write some great headlines. You learn how to, put together the paper. You learn how to find a good story. And I covered everything. I covered everything from murder and mayhem to, mom and pop opening a bagel shop, so, and everything in between. So that was cool. And I think working on a small town paper allowed me that breadth of, covering county government,
right,
or covering city government, or covering entrepreneurs or business. So it was neat doing that breadth. Whereas at a larger paper, when I was with the Morning Journal, I almost exclusively covered
narrower.
Yeah, because you had a specific beat, and I covered, of all things, I covered the Erie County Commissioners for the Morning Journal. I don't know why that was my beat, but that's what I ended up falling into. So.
Understand. How is that type of media, the paper,
right,
newspaper, differ from television?
Sure.
That you were experienced in as well?
Well, with newspaper, I think you had the ability a lot more to narrate the story and to get a lot more in depth. One of the most fascinating things that I would cover was the police blotter, which is just absolutely fascinating. I mean, some of the things people do is kind of mind-blowing. So incredible is a great word. So, but you had the ability to create a much larger narrative, a much larger story. And I think for some reason there's still that tactile something about a newspaper that you love to hold. And,
right.
That you
still selling them.
You're right. It feels a little bit more permanence. When I first started, it was kind of neat to see your byline. I thought that was kind of fun. And my mom would cut out the clippings and whatnot and save all those. And after a while, it just became overwhelming. We gotta love them. And with TV, it's a lot shorter. A lot, you're creating packages, which, and the technology compared to what it is now was almost Stone Age, like back when I was doing it. Literally cutting tape and editing pieces together. And, I remember there were banks of VCRs, and you would be moving VHS tapes to, to be able to put them back and forth. So it was a little cumbersome. But I enjoyed the narrative of telling the stories. And I would try to get to the story and try to make sure that either whether it was a listener or a viewer or a reader, that they were coming away knowing a little bit more about what was going on. And that was really my mission. I was not trying to persuade people. I really took the objectivity to.
You had to be real concise.
You had to be very concise with TV. Now I host a podcast now called Lorain County Strong, which is just kind of keeping alive my love of radio, and enjoy doing that. And I still interview, lots of interesting people that are making a positive impact on Lorain County. Because unfortunately, I feel that so much of the positive news and great things that are happening, whether it's in our country or in our county, gets stifled by so much of the yelling and name calling and sensationalism that we somehow have gotten painfully addicted to. Yeah.
Why did you move on to running your own business?
Who? That's I guess the million dollar question. At the time, when you're young, you're a little bit more fearless, right? And at the time, I think I was about 34 or 35, and I had always done, some side jobs that, I enjoyed doing. And it wasn't that I felt that I didn't really have a lot more to learn, because you're always learning and getting better at whatever you do every single day. But I was a good leader. I was reasonably expert in my field. And at the time, I just felt that it was a good opportunity for me to, start up my own thing, do things the way that I wanted them to be done. And you could kind of see the writing on the wall, too. At some point, at least in a larger firm where I had a leadership position, I was a VP of a firm. So it wasn't like I was some junior intern who's deciding to start your own business. Now, there's anything wrong with that, but that's a little riskier. I had been doing it for years and years.
Okay.
I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
I built, a strong, group of contacts and clientele. And I just felt that I wasn't going to be a good employee anymore. I was ready to be a good employer and, kind of help bring along the next generation of marketing and public relations and advertising executives and, really make my mark in leading, and being a leader in my industry, which, I was the 2012 PR Executive of the Year. I was the 2014 CEO of the Year from Lead Magazine, an Inc. 5000. We were the PR Agency of the Year. So
congratulations.
We did all right.
Yeah.
We did okay.
What does the Eisen Agency do?
Right.
And what area does it serve?
Sure. So we have clients from all over the country. I have clients that range from a UFO research company to companies that make concrete to small mom and pop restaurants to very large franchise conglomerates, some of the very largest in their field, whether it's in real estate or whether it's in home improvement or they're names that everybody would know. And what we do is, to put it as simple as I can, we try to convince whomever their target publics are to either buy their products or use their services or vote a certain way or you become a member of that organization. So, and that takes on, when you understand that that's the main goal, then the tactics of how you go about achieving that goal vary from client to client. But it's anything from television, radio, print ads, billboards, social media, everything.
All those different approaches.
All that stuff. Website development, public relations, media relations, trade shows. So our firm does all those things in varying degrees to a business and helping to brand that business, craft their message, and then get that message out in the most efficient way possible. So people are manipulated to go drink that beverage or go use that home improvement company.
Okay. How many staff members are there in the agency, and how is the agency structured?
Sure, it's a great question. So there's 12 of us now. I think in our heyday there were 20 of us, but we did scale back a little bit. We were a virtual agency starting in 2015 or 2016. I ditched the four walls and we actually got rid of the office setting and everybody was working from home or working virtually. It's just, we discovered that it just wasn't working bringing everybody in to a physical office anymore. Rarely did a client want to come to our place. They always wanted us to come to them. We were increasingly, even when we were there, we were still scattered or working with different clients or out at this event or at that trade show or here. So, in my infinite wisdom, I'm like, why am I paying $3, $4, $5 a month for an office space that
you don't really need?
We don't really need, and not to mention fighting rush hour traffic. We were going into downtown Cincinnati and out every single day, which was nightmarish. And so we went virtual, which looking back was actually a great decision. Not only did it save us money, I was able to give almost every member of my staff a raise as a result. And it gave us a big leg up when this remote working, along, right? Because for us, it didn't affect us at all. We were already doing that and we were already working that way. So
You must
very
have very
seamless
good
transition.
relationships with your staff members.
Oh, I've got staffers that have been with me for more than a decade, and it's a great team. It's a group of folks that I really trust. I like to consider myself a benevolent dictator as a small business owner.
Okay.
But we work together in a very creative and high energy field. So, you need to hear things from a lot of different perspectives. You need to be a very good listener because, again, it's a creative field. So a lot of the things that we're doing aren't black and white. They're pretty, subjective. So the more you're able to work with folks, help shape, what needs to be done. And I've always found that if you hire really good people and you point them in the right direction and say, let's do this, and you offer them guidance and cheerleading and some mentorship.
Coach.
And coach, yeah, that you'll really get a lot of great things out of people. And we've produced, in my opinion, some just fantastic work, and certainly lots of award-winning work. But I think what makes me the proudest is when a client comes back to me and says, "Man, you really turned my business around," or "Our sales have tripled in the last year since we started working with you." And I think that's why we've had clients that have been with us for so long. I mean, I've got one client that I've had since the day I opened my doors. So, almost 20 years they've been a part of my firm, and they're a major franchise organization that everybody would know instantly. And I'm proud of that of all the agencies that they could pick anywhere in the country, they've been with us for almost 20 years.
And you should be proud, What is a marketing and public relations doctor?
Me.
Okay, all right.
So typically a company, they're not growing, or they're shrinking, or they're having trouble retaining staff, or there's a revolving door, and they're just not sure why, but they know something's wrong.
Okay.
So they realize that I'm not sure what it is, but I know something's not working the way it should. And the way we're doing it isn't working. So just like a doctor or an auditor would do, you come in and you do a forensic audit of what the company is doing. And think of it, or like a home inspector is another great way to look at it. You know what I mean? So you go through, you're looking at their books, you're looking at their staff, you're looking at their processes, you're looking at their programs, you're looking at really everything it is that they're doing as part of the operations and the branding. And we've got a program called BOA, which stands for Brand Operations Alignment, where we make sure that the brand that they have and their operations are actually in alignment with one another, so you can more efficiently market and grow the business. And we're able to pretty quickly diagnose things. I mean, I've seen it all too, Rudy. I mean, some things that it's pretty obvious that that's wrong. And some are more nuanced, but more often than not, me and my team are able to come in, and usually within a week or so, we've got a pretty specific diagnosis of what's going on, and then very specific solutions as to how to
fresh
fix
eyes
that.
looking at a situation.
For sure.
Sometimes helps a lot.
I think so. And, we see it a lot with, small businesses tend to be the largest culprits of this because they don't have other folks around them. They don't feel that they can afford an agency, which is silly because we're not.
Hard to step back and look.
Right. And trust me, our firm or companies like us are going to save you a lot more money and headaches than will ever cost you. I mean, we've literally saved businesses that were circling the drain, that are ready to go under. So they bring us in, we give them a good and very honest. I'm just there to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And a lot of times too, and I'll use this as an analogy. Pretend that you've never heard of any brand name of any car. So you don't know the difference between a Mercedes and a Hyundai. But all you know is that it's a vehicle with four wheels that gets you from point A to point B.
Okay.
Now you're trying to explain to me why I should pay $80,000 for this car and $10,000 for this one, when they basically do the exact same thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So
I gotcha.
That's really where we come in. So, because if you don't know what the cost of something is, what the value of something is, what the difference in something is, and how to assess that, you might pay $80,000 for the Hyundai.
Yeah. Why not?
Because you simply don't know. So we help. We have saved clients, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars because they were doing certain things just horribly wrong. I'll use one quick example. We were working with a financial advisor, a very well-known financial advisor, and they served a very specific clientele in a very specific radius of where they were located. But they were running Google ads nationwide and spending $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month on running nationwide Google ads, even though they could only service a very specific group of people in a very specific radius.
Yep.
So little things like that they think that they're doing more, but we find those areas of waste. And again, with a firm like ours, we can find that pretty quickly when you see those things.
What kinds of companies do you typically help?
Well,
if you can say typically.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say the most, usually the ones that we help are the ones that they either need to, I wouldn't say there's any specific industry type. We do very large franchise organizations to small mom and pop restaurants, and honestly everything in between. We work with law firms, we work with healthcare operations, we work with home improvement companies, real estate. So professional services is really a nice bailiwick of ours. A lot of dentists, a lot of physicians' practices, and so forth. But the common denominator that most of them share is they want to find a more efficient way to market their firm or market their business or market their service.
Yep.
And they realize that they don't know everything, and that's okay. They are comfortable with reaching out and having somebody who does know what they're doing manage it. And it's just like you calling a doctor or calling a lawyer or calling a chiropractor or you want to call a financial advisor. You want to call somebody who knows what they're doing, so you don't necessarily have to do it. And you certainly don't want to do it wrong. You don't want to get yourself in legal trouble and try to do that yourself. You don't want to get yourself in a marketing hole and try to do that yourself. So I'd say that's the common denominator with those leaders, is that they recognize that this is probably something that is smartest to offshore.
Okay. What are some common communication errors that you see in the news today or in media today?
Yeah. The state of our news industry is not really one that I'm fond of right now.
Okay.
Watching the news is almost unbearable sometimes. The partisanship, the inability to recognize what's opinion versus fact has I think eroded our country, to be frank. You're watching a commentator making some insane comment which seems to have to get more and more inflammatory because everything needs to be more and more sensational to attract viewers and attract clicks. It's all clickbait.
Yeah.
That the truth has kind of taken a back seat. You literally have my truth and your truth and
opinion.
Right, which is more opinion. And a lot of the times you're seeing that things that are opinion aren't based on fact at all. They're based on some emotional outburst. You're not being provided news, in my opinion, in a more objective fashion so you can make a decision, or it's news that you can use. It's just overly sensational. A lot of it, especially with, obviously I'm a Republican, so I'm going to say this, but a lot of the mainstream media is so biased as to almost be unwatchable, which is why their ratings are dead. CNN is on life support. MSNBC is utterly unwatchable, in my opinion. And you're just not seeing objective news. And it's when you open the newspaper, just watch how certain headlines are written. If it's a narrative that you can tell a certain side doesn't want to share, and there's a lot of that happening too, where you won't see news about certain things on CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN. They won't even cover certain things. So this is, bias through omission. And they'll only cover certain things that specifically fit the narrative that they're trying to push. So I would just suggest for everybody that's a viewer or reader, make sure that what you're reading or what you're viewing, you're trying to view that through a little bit more objective lens, because the people that are pushing that stuff are manipulating you.
Understand.
It's very propaganda based right now.
Understand. How do you get clients? This is a secret now, right?
No,
You're
no,
gonna
it's- I
tell,
mean, it's-
just sharing with me
Yeah,
today.
no. I mean, I've been blessed that we've had almost zero turnover of clients over the years. We've had some that had some challenges because of the COVID situation, and they had to back off on their marketing. Our restaurant clients have really taken a beating because they're
Right,
having a hard
right.
time attracting
Yep,
staff.
yep.
So they cut back on their marketing simply because they can't even keep up. So that's been a challenge. But I do a lot of networking through my pro bono work that I do. You meet a lot of people. Doing shows like this is great.
Okay.
You know, I'm certainly a part of the Lorain Chamber. I'm also the CEO of the PRAOA, which is the Public Relations Agency Owners Association. It's a 10,000 member virtual group that's nationwide, and we share leads with one another on different programs. A lot of word of mouth. But we're very active on social media. We practice what we preach. We advertise. We market. I do a lot of writing, and you know, I have a lot of published articles out there about marketing or PR and so forth.
And people get in touch with you.
They do. They'll reach out and say, "Hey, we think we need some help," and and we don't take on every type of client, Rudy. I mean, they've got to be the right type, and they've got to make good sense for us, and we want to make good sense for them. So. But we've been blessed. But if you're a small business that feels that you need some help, or a big business that needs to outsource, some or all of your marketing, we're a good choice.
Okay. What advice would you give someone who wanted to start a small business?
Don't know.
It's tough.
It is tough, and our government, God bless them, makes it tougher. You are penalized every step of the way for being a small business owner. They make it very difficult. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of regulations. You pay a lot of taxes. It's tough. But I would say, if you're thinking about starting a small business, first you need to understand, what area is being underserved. So if you find that there's no widget manufacturers around, you should probably think about becoming a widget manufacturer.
Okay.
But if you don't know how to make that, then operationally you need to figure out how to make those widgets efficiently and properly and professionally. A lot of people start off with their passion, and if I did that, I would be a starving rock musician. So,
I see. Okay.
Right. So, it's good to have a passion for what it is that you're doing. Obviously, you want to enjoy doing it. But it has to be marketable. It has to be saleable. It has to be viable. My wife and I are beekeepers, but there's not a lot of money in selling honey and beekeeping.
I see.
You see, so but there's the LCC has the Ohio Small Business Development Center up there. That's
Okay.
a fantastic local resource if
Okay.
you're considering getting involved as a small business.
right.
Certainly being part of the chamber and going to chamber events and networking with other small business owners to understand specifically what some of their challenges are. And I think, because when you're starting out as a small business, you're wearing a lot of hats. You're the CEO, you're the CFO, you're the janitor, you're the, you're everything. And it is assembling a team around you so you are able to concentrate on what it is that you do best, as opposed to trying to constantly take on all those different hats. So my advice is, model yourself after some other folks that around you that you admire, that you feel that have been, successful in what it is that they're doing. Find that niche and that underserved market, and then hang your shingle, get it out there, and
Go for it.
and do it. In the immortal words of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, it's never too late to work 9 to 5. So you get out there, and if you fail quickly and try it again.
Okay. What criteria did you finally use to decide to go into public service?
Well, you've got good questions today.
I
Rudy.
try.
You do.
I try.
It's one of those things where, you ever watched a Cleveland Browns game and been really frustrated at the game, and you're convinced
They
that you
should
could?
have
Yes,
passed. They should have passed.
Right. You're convinced that you could have, if you were the coach or you were the quarterback, that you would have won that game.
Okay.
And when I'm watching the state of our county, the state of our country, I found myself wanting to be the coach of that.
Okay. All right.
I felt that there were so many things that were off track, so many things that were going in the wrong direction, that yelling at the TV wasn't
Throwing things at
throwing things at the TV, typing mean things on Facebook wasn't going to make any difference.
Okay.
It wasn't going to make any positive change. So I wanted to look around and see what made the most sense and where it is that I thought that my unique skill set could best fit in, that's going to make a positive difference and a positive change for, you know, my community and my city and my county, and hopefully my state. And, you know, I want to be a good example, and I'm hoping that, you know, there's some ripple effect from that, because I think that government at all levels needs a lot more just genuinely good women and men that want to go into public service for the right reasons. I don't want to be rich. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be whatever. I've been a very successful small business owner. I love my county. I love my town. I love my family. And I want to be able to bring that to everybody who's around here. And, you know, we as taxpayers, we're getting the shaft, Rudy.
Okay.
And I don't like what's going on. You know, taxes always seem to be going in one direction almost all the time. The rhetoric, particularly in Washington, but even here in our little corner of the world, is disheartening. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way. We should expect better out of the people that we're electing to serve us. Okay. And they've forgotten the term serve at almost every level. And I'm just really disappointed, with both parties, by the way, with how things are going and the state of our county and our country. And we deserve better.
I think that's great motivation, Rodger. What are the primary areas of responsibility that an auditor has in Lorain County? Yeah,
so there's a lot of, what was the line back in the 1800s? If they couldn't figure out which department, would handle a certain thing, they'd give it to the auditor. So, they wear a lot of kind of strange hats. But probably the thing that most folks think of when they're thinking of the auditor are your property taxes, your real estate taxes, and so forth. So, not that the auditor controls those for up and down, but that's who's making sure that they're all copacetic and being properly appraised and so forth. So every 6 years there's an appraisal. Every 3 years, they do kind of the off-year estimates. That's the main one. If you think of if you have a dog, you need to run to the auditor to get your license, right? If you want to be a vendor, you have to get your license there. There's so many areas that I think could be improved upon, when it comes to sitting on the different boards and commissions that the auditor is a part of, whether it's looking at tax exemptions, whether it's looking at appraisal rates, whether it's looking at, these kind of programs that are, again, in my opinion, are constantly finding creative ways to liberate people from their money. We need to be finding ways that are going to be more efficient, that I'm hoping can bring some of those things down. And that's been a large part of my motivation, where there just doesn't seem to be anybody finding ways to say, you know what if we lowered the price of dog tags? What if we lowered the prices of a vendor license? What if we lowered, millage and property? I mean, oh my gosh, what a concept, right? I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm convinced I could cut the price of dog tags in half and triple the revenue. So, and it's these kind of things that I just don't know that people are asking the right kind of questions. If you own a manufactured home, you have to get that, taken care of at the auditor. So there's just a lot of, kind of interesting things. If you go to my website, you can see basically a list of all the things that an auditor generally does. But, just making sure that there's a fair accounting of the books, and making sure that the dollars are being spent where they're supposed to be spent. And
again, fresh eyes looking at these things.
I think so. When with my business, I run a very tight ship, and I think a lot of government offices would say that they are, But it's just where you're prioritizing that. I mean, wasn't it the city of Lorain that just spent, I don't know how many thousands of dollars on, time clocks that ended up just going in the trash heap or something like that? I mean, just little things like that. And where we're spending our money, like I said, I'm convinced that dog tags, in my opinion, are far too expensive unnecessarily, which is why you have a lot of people not getting their dogs tagged. And that causes a problem. That's a nuisance. And it is overly burdensome for folks that are living paycheck to paycheck who want to love and do the right thing with their pet. So it's little things like that, vendor licenses. We want to encourage that sort of thing. But it seems that, we're just taxed to death and nickeled and dimed to death, and all of our politicians across almost every area are simply not asking the right question: is how can we do this job? How can we do it a little bit more effectively and efficiently? And let's start finding ways to lessen the burden on a shrinking taxpayer base. So you and I and everybody that pays income taxes or property taxes, real estate taxes, there's less and less of us every day, and the number's not going in the right direction. It's, so we have fewer people paying more to make sure that the 51, 52, 53% that pay nothing are still getting stuff. It's a bad trajectory, and I don't like the direction of that.
What government agency sets the mill rate?
Yeah. It's going to vary, but for all intents and purposes, I'd like to say it's not a government agency that sets the mill rate at all. It's the people.
Okay.
We decide what the mill rate is because we voted for it.
Okay.
Fair enough. But all the departments, the schools, whatever, are going to come together and they're going to say, I need to raise X amount of money. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So based on the valuations of the property or the real estate or the general tax list, it's all the stuff that's going to be taxed. They need to understand what millage I need to set that at to collect X amount of dollars. And again, it goes up all the time, right? So it's never let's lower it by 3% or 5%. Let's grow it because we need another park, or we need a this, or we need a whatever.
Okay.
And not that you don't want nice parks, don't send me letters, but you know what I mean, right?
All right.
But so once that's discovered, then the commissioners will put that up for a ballot, and then folks will vote on it. But all you have to do is look in the mirror to see who
sets the mill rate.
Set the mill rate. I mean, we voted for it, and when you hear my famous one is, this is not a levy increase, this is not a millage increase, but when your property values go up by default, they're going to be collecting more money unless it was a set amount that was done. So that's also going to vary, but all the little levies that you voted for, whether it's fire or police or schools or everything, is all part of this. It is, yep. So, and that all affects, how much the burden is on typically a homeowner in any given community. So that's adding to all of that. So if you want those to go down, and then that's another thing that the auditor does is takes a look at all those levies each year and makes sure that they're fair and that they're accurate, and if there's any opportunity to lower them, I will be pointing that out basically every single day as auditor.
Okay, appreciate that. Your campaign uses something that looks like a railroad crossing sign. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. Well, obviously my name is Rodger Roeser, so the RR are my initials, right? I also wanted to, I needed an inexpensive way to get my signs up all throughout the county, and I just want everybody every time they cross a railroad sign to think
that's
of me.
A Rodger
Okay. So it was a cheap way for me to get signs up all over the county. But railroads, the symbolism presents a lot of things for me. One of them is I want to make sure that Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, I don't care what party you're a part of or who you support. It's an all aboard campaign, because I will serve Democrats and Libertarians and Republicans equally and fairly as auditor. It's not like I'm going to raise property taxes on Democrats and eliminate them on Republicans, obviously. So everyone should be treated fairly and should be treated honestly and equitably. And that's a big deal to me. So it is an all-aboard strategy. It's an all-aboard campaign because we're all part of this county, and we all need to be working together to make this county better. And
On the same track.
and that comes to my slogan, which is let's get Lorain County back on track.
Okay.
Because we're off track, and I think the country's off track. You know, when you look at the poll numbers, I mean, Republicans and Democrats can't agree on what color the sky is.
Yeah.
83% of Americans say that the country is off track. 83% say
Wow.
the country's off track. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of senses that there's something funky going on. There's something amiss. And in running for this office, you know, you get to see a lot more inside baseball, and you get to see a lot more of, you know, I guess the swamp, if you want to call it that. But it's not irreparable. And I want to give folks a lot of hope that there are good people out there that are very well-meaning and very well-intentioned that want to come in and just do honest work to make things run better and to serve their constituents better and more fairly. And like I said, hopefully uncover some ways to lower the prices and lower the taxes on everything. Because, Rudy, I don't know about you, but there's only so much burden anybody can handle. And when you look at where gas prices are, which the auditor also has his name on every gas pump in Lorain County, that's another odd thing, the weights and measures side of the auditor.
Okay.
But when you look at gas prices, when you look at food prices, how the dominoes are falling with that, where you look at what's happening with people's 401ks and pensions and the stock market, inflation is the worst in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. You know, things aren't going the way they should be. And the nasty partisan nature of things, the name calling, that's got to stop. It's time to tone down the rhetoric and get back to what government was intended to do. Mm-hmm. And that was to serve its constituents in getting things done and hopefully help them. People don't necessarily know what the auditor does or is, and I think that's okay. If the auditor is making you crazy every single day, I don't think the auditor is doing their job right. You know, I will be a very proactive auditor in finding ways to help folks get their homestead exemptions and help folks save some money and help, you know, work on certain pet projects that I'm going to take on of my own volition as part of the auditor, and be a lot more proactive in making Lorain County a better place. And unfortunately, I don't think sitting back and putting rubber stamps to things and, you know, having service that's as abysmal as the BMV is having the county on the right track. Mm-hmm.
What makes you qualified for being the auditor? I
Sure.
think you've said a lot of that already.
Yeah. I'm a good leader. I think that the people that serve in most government offices, especially on the service side, are very well intentioned. I think they mean well. I think they want to do a good job. I also believe that those jobs can become drudgery. You know, I think some of it can be tedious. I think some of it can be cumbersome. And having a new head coach can make all the difference in the world in bringing a little sunshine and sparkle
Okay.
and smile back to the way things are being done. I think having that fresh perspective, having that fresh set of eyes and those fresh ideas, and bringing in some proactive and positive initiatives as opposed to this constant reactivity of most government, which I find just abhorrent. You know, we need to be proactive in finding better and smarter solutions. So it's bringing that fresh idea and those fresh ideas, reigniting and reinvigorating, you know, the service side and the service sector from a leadership perspective. You know, the expertise of a business owner who's comfortable watching every single penny and making sure that every single penny that goes in and every single penny that goes out is being spent and invested smartly and wisely for the good of, you know, in this case, the county and the county constituents, and in that case, you know, homeowners, taxpayers, commercial, you know, property owners, and making sure that, you know, we're leaving a positive mark and a positive legacy in getting processes in place that are making it an efficient, well-run, well-managed machine that's setting a really good example for all the other county departments to say, hey, it's a big goal of mine. I've been running P&L and numbers, for years and years, not just for small business, but for my clients, running multi-million-dollar campaigns. And you're held accountable for that. You're accounting for every single penny and how that's being invested and how that's and there needs to be, very specific measurable results for those dollars. And I want to make sure that the auditor's department leads by example, and the rest of the departments in the county can look at it as a model of not only efficiency, but strong processes and in finding ways to return money, back to the taxpayer. It's their money.
Yeah.
But by the grace of those, homeowners and other folks that are paying into those taxes, government wouldn't even exist. So they've forgotten that. They have all forgotten that. And we're there to serve them and to serve them well and serve them with a smile. And like I said, I think bringing in that small business leadership experience, the good fresh ideas, and the fiscal expertise is gonna serve Lorain County well.
The what needs to be addressed right away in the current auditor's office
Right.
that you're aware of?
And obviously, I'm not there right now, so there could be a lot more once I get in, because I'm going to do a forensic, walkthrough of everything to understand areas of inefficiency or waste or so forth. The technology is outdated from what I can assess. You look at their website, is very cumbersome. It's the service needs to be addressed with, how folks are being serviced and the manner in which they're serviced and provided for. I think there's a tremendous lack of proactivity in going out and explaining, some of the exemptions. I need to research very closely on where tax abatements and tax exemptions are being given, because I think that those are thrown out like M&Ms at a parade, and I don't like that either. I think that, tax abatements, while they can be a useful tool, a lot of times you'll have a business come in, take advantage of their 10-year tax abatement, and as soon as the abatement's up, they turn around and move to the next town. So, that's just not helping, and it increases the burden on homeowners and small business owners that are certainly not getting abatements or exemptions. So, I plan to review all of those. But mostly, Rudy, it really is, I want to make sure that when somebody has an interaction with the auditor or a member of the department, that it's a positive one. Even if maybe, hey, something didn't go in your favor, but that was fair, and they treated me with respect, and they treated me with dignity, and they did so with a smile, and maybe I didn't get what I wanted, but I'm still happy, and they're still good folks, and there are good folks there. It's just let's do it with a smile. It's the inefficiencies in the technology that I see are the biggest weaknesses, and I'm going to fix that.
Understand. What are the top challenges for Lorain County that you see?
Oy. Good news today about Ford. Theoretically, my understanding is that they're going to be adding a significant electric vehicle plant or program in Avon Lake. So I think that's going to be real positive. This is a tough one. There's too much urban blight and urban decay. That's a big issue of mine and something that I want to see addressed. When you look at the monstrosity that is the Elyria Mall and that whole area over there, back in the 60s, that was a great idea, and then it was never nurtured, and then pretty soon it started to spiral into decay, and again, the local politicians did virtually nothing about it and just let it go, and now it's just sitting there, and the local politicians still can't get themselves together and figure out what needs to be done. David Moore, I think, has done an incredible job in pushing different ideas, but they still can't get it together. And leaving it sit there and decay and do nothing and not bring in any revenue is a terrible misjustice. And it just, and you look at the urban sprawl, or the sprawl of all these strip malls that are empty. Meantime, downtown Elyria, downtown Lorain are praying, please come in and be a part of our, vibrancy and reawakening. So, the lack of small businesses, the lack of business friendly environments with our county and city governments who, again, it's like running a marathon and every 5 yards somebody's throwing a hurdle up in front of you. They need to do a better job. And we need to have a collective plan as a county to address this urban blight, whether it's with the houses or with the businesses, because there are certain areas that you come into Lorain County and it looks like it was hit by a bomb, and that's not helping anybody. And I think we can do a better job. That's a big issue. And to me, it starts with a lot of that infrastructure. You look at Broadway in Lorain. What they've done there is nothing sort of miraculous.
Wow.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And, I give them so much credit, but where did it start? They started with new sidewalks and curbs. And
as simple as that.
As
right?
simple as that. And we need to do a much better job in maintaining our roads, our bridges, our sidewalks, and it's the little things. The window smash strategy. Where you're seeing those kinds of things. We need to do a better job of, taking a look at the blighted houses that their lawns haven't been mowed for 2 years, and there's plywood up on the windows, and nothing good's happening at those places,
right?
And nothing positive for the county. So, if we can focus on some of these little things, everything else I think will fall, because it's very difficult to put a business of any kind into an infrastructure that's crumbling or falling to the ground, or something that people are afraid to go to. Look at Main Street in Amherst. It's fantastic what they've done there.
Yeah.
And we could be a model of that, because downtown Elyria was beautiful, and it could be again.
What outstanding things are planned for your future in Ohio, if you could summarize?
Well, I promised that I would make this run at Auditor, and if the voters honor me with electing me, I will serve 2 terms max. This is not going to be a career of mine. I'm a big believer in term limits. The current party has held the auditor's position for well over 30-some years. It's time for a change. I will serve, in that capacity to the best that I can, but I don't know that politics are in my future, Rudy. I don't know that that's something that I'm going to stay in. Even the auditor's position is not terribly political, so I don't have any grandiose notions of
President
running for
of the United States.
No, God, no. I wouldn't want that burden on anybody, and I certainly don't want that. But I'm a musician. I am blessed to be a professional, wannabe rock star, which is kind of fun. So I write and record songs. So, it's always a goal of mine to maybe be a 50-year-old one-hit wonder. That would be fun. And we used to play in live. We don't do that as much anymore, but I'd like to get back to doing some live shows with my guys. I own a classic car. I own a 1949 Oldsmobile Rocket 88.
Wow.
And I love going to car shows with my wife and showing off my beautiful 49. She's fun to drive, and she's a great car. Kudos to Sunnyside Chevy in Elyria for helping me make her, more perfect. So I enjoy doing that. I'm writing a book. My first book is going to be out this Christmas, so I'm excited about that.
We'll look for that.
It's going to be kind of fun. I actually wrote it's a children's book, so.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be kind of fun. So I just, like I said, I enjoy writing, whether it's songs or newspaper articles, or in this case, a children's book, and also learning German, which is also challenging at 50 years old. So, that has been, I wish I would have learned it about 50 years ago, but it's something I took up about a year ago, and starting to get a little bit better at it. So I can say, basic phrases, and I could probably get us around Germany and order us a hot dog. So.
Okay.
But my future holds a little bit more fun and relaxation after this experience.
Okay, sounds great. What can Avon Lakers do to help you with your campaign? Do you need volunteers?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. I mean, we're always looking for volunteers. Anybody that would be willing to, just hand out some literature, or hand out some information. You don't have to knock on doors and talk to people. I don't know how much people would enjoy that, but folks to do that, folks to maybe make some phone calls. folks to just spread the word when they're going to some community event or some organization to say, hey, that Rodger guy's not so bad, and he might, be a be a good addition.
How can they get in touch with you?
Roeserforauditor.com is probably the easiest, and you can actually, there's 12 different levels of donation that you can make on there. We made donation levels and named them after all the roads and the major highways in Lorain County. So if anybody wants to go on the website, they can make a quick donation if they'd like, and we'd appreciate it.
And you have a phone number?
Oh, yeah, 440-934-1313. They can call the office and answer any questions that they might have, or if they'd like to help.
The campaign has a website.
Yeah, Roeser for Auditor, so ROESERFOR Auditor, roeserforauditor.com.
Okay. In summary, what's making sense to you and what doesn't? You can pick either of those.
Nothing makes sense to me anymore. No. Social media doesn't make sense to me. I think it's not helped our society at all. You think of it as a electronic town square, but it's kind of devolved into chaos and madness, and folks mostly just yelling at one another. TikTok makes no sense to me. If you've ever heard of that, that's a strange thing that I'm not sure. I think has nefarious things. Television doesn't make sense to me. So most pop culture things are completely lost on me now. Maybe it's because I hit 50 and now all of a sudden everything stinks, so I'm just the crotchety old man that's like, those kids. But the neat thing is, what does make sense to me is, I've rediscovered what's new music to me and what's new TV shows to me. I love, listening to Sinatra and Dean Martin and the Rat Pack, Sammy Davis Jr. It's so strange to say. People ask me now, who's your favorite band? And I'm like, Glenn Miller. And it's all, but it's new music to me because I never listened to it before. But I love it now, and it's just neat to hear. So what makes sense to me is kind of going. I love old TV shows. What's your favorite TV show? Columbo. Who's your favorite actress? Joan Crawford. So just because they're an old movie or an old TV show or an old song, if you've never seen it or watched it or listened to it, it's brand new to me. And man, that's good stuff. There's nothing quite like a great episode of Columbo or, putting on Sinatra live at the Sands. I mean, that's just cool. And it's sparked a whole new love of different things around Lorain County. I mean, I've been to Lorain County Palace to see some shows several times. That makes sense to me.
Beautiful theater.
It's a wonderful theater. Going out to the Lorain County Metro Parks makes sense to me. So, where pop culture, I think, has lost us, nature and family and that time does make sense. So less TV, less social media, less time doing this, and more time experiencing just some of the neat things. I just did the Avon Lake Historical Society last week with the Parker House.
Okay.
That was cool.
Yeah.
And I think every teenage boy and girl needs to go to that house and sit there for about an hour and realize what life actually was like. And living in your suburban McMansion is not reality. And it hasn't been reality for thousands and thousands of years of human existence. So realize how good you really have it, because it was not that long ago at all that you had 2 rooms for 7 people.
Understand. Well, thank you, Rodger. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us like this.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you folks watching. Please give us feedback on the show. You can send us emails, get in contact with us. The email addresses will be at the bottom of the screen. If you're interested in appearing, or some interesting people that you can have contact us, we'd love to have them on the show. Remember, seatbelts save lives. Goodbye.
The preceding program was presented to you by a community producer. The statements, views, and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of ALC TV or the City of Avon Lake.